My entitled mother nearly ruins my expensive trip to New York City as she said she would book my flight for me as a gift. But instead of actually following through with that, she instead put this off for far too long, leaving me with no choice but to book the flight myself. And in the end, she called me ungrateful, despite the fact that she almost ruined everything. And to this day, this situation honestly still makes me mad. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened to me about 2 years ago, but it still enrages me whenever I think about it. Before the pandemic started, I bought tickets to go see Rage Against the Machine at Madison Square Garden in New York City. I live in Los Angeles, so I planned a whole week-long trip to New York City around this concert. And unfortunately, the concert was postponed twice due to COVID. When the concert's rescheduled date was finally solid, I decided to book my flight. I was talking about the trip on the phone with my entitled mother, and she insisted on booking my flight for me as a gift. I was meeting friends in New York City, and we spent a full evening on the phone booking restaurants, museum tickets, show tickets, and several other things. And I found the perfect flight that would get me there in time for everything. And they only had 2 tickets left. So I called my mom and I told her I wanted this particular flight. She said okay and to send her the flight information and she would book it for me. I sent a link to the flight, I sent screenshots and all this other stuff, and I made it super easy for her to book. I told her it was absolutely imperative that I get this particular flight as my friends and I had things planned, and she insisted that she would book it. Now, for reference, I live in a different time zone than her, and when I woke up the next morning, I did not see a flight confirmation email in my inbox, so I called her up. She answered the phone sounding very annoyed that she was in her doctor's waiting room for a routine checkup, and she started whisper yelling at me, "What do you want?" And it was then that I just decided to call her back. Well, 5:00 p.m. rolls around, and I still don't have a flight confirmation email, so I called her again, and she again picked up incredibly angry with me, yelling at me that she was in Costco and why in the world do I keep calling her? I told her that she promised to book a flight for me and that there were only 2 seats left almost 24 hours ago, and that it was absolutely essential that I get on this flight. Well, she told me, "Oh, just forget it, I'll do it later." When she said that, I got very mad, and I was like, "What are you talking about? There were only 2 seats left last night." She then started screaming into the phone at me. She said to me, "You're getting a free flight, so you could just shut up and I'll book the flight whenever I feel like it. You need to be more grateful that I'm even offering to do this favor." And then after that, she hung up the phone on me. So she basically left me no choice but to book the flight myself and get the last seat possible. She called me when she got home from Costco and kept yelling about how I was ungrateful, but I told her that she had done nothing to be grateful for except almost ruin my trip. I mean, why would I be grateful for that? And here's the thing, she wanted to use points and not money to pay for the flight. And before anyone says anything, I don't need my mom to book me a flight. I'm a 40-year-old female, and she offered to book the flight. I didn't ask her or beg her. If she said she was going to book the flight for me, why would I not take her at her word and believe that she was going to do it that night? It's honestly so frustrating, and even to this day, it still upsets me. Wow, that honestly is so enraging. Here you are trying to get your plans ready for you and your friends, and you thought in good faith your mom was going to book this flight for you as some kind of like good favor. And I literally don't think you could have made this any easier. You sent her a link to the flight, you sent screenshots, you literally sent everything to this lady, and somehow she didn't understand how crucial and like time sensitive this was. And I'm kind of convinced that she probably would have never booked the flight, but instead tried to shop around for something cheaper and made you change your plans instead of just buying the flight that you were looking for. Like at that point, I don't blame you for just buying your own ticket. So honestly, it really sounds like your mom was awful in this situation, and hopefully you don't have to deal with anything like that ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My best friend is upset that I got engaged before she did, all because her boyfriend of 5 years simply won't do it. And now I'm sensing a lot of resentment and jealousy from my best friend. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for some backstory, my best friend has been with her boyfriend for 4.5 years, and she has been begging him to propose. She even set a deadline last year that if he doesn't propose before Christmas, she will leave him. Well, he didn't propose, and she is still dropping passive-aggressive remarks at him from time to time about it. And I have tried to help. I took her to get measurements a year ago because her boyfriend said that he won't buy one if he doesn't know her size and all this other garbage. Well, my my boyfriend proposed 2 weeks ago, and that's after 2 years of being together and 1.5 years of living together. I said yes, and I've been so happy. And when I told my friends, they were also so happy for me. A few even cried, and they were asking for every single detail. But when it came to my best friend, I decided to tell her over dinner. We met up and I showed her the ring, and she didn't even try to be fake happy with me. She just said to me, "You guys are rushing. I mean, I don't think about stuff like that now. My man and I will buy rings together and announce our engagement next month." She gave me no congratulations, no nothing. I felt embarrassed and tried to change the subject to lighten the mood because I still want to hang out with my best friend. Eventually, she barely talked. I gave up, and it was so awkward. We eventually went home after just an hour. And right now, I'm honestly so hurt. I know she's hurting too, but to act like this feels so immature. Would it be a bad idea to text her and tell her this and talk it out? I mean, how can I even fix this? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, it is really bad that your friend is acting this way. Like, just because you're getting engaged doesn't mean that somehow this is some kind of shot at her. Like, you really can live your own life and have your own things going on. Just because her boyfriend won't propose to her after what, 5 years? Like, that literally is not your fault or your problem. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would probably put some distance between me and this friend. Like, she is clearly very jealous of you and the fact that you're getting married before her, so she feels the need to try and like one-up you in some way to feel good about herself again. And she probably feels like she's losing her mind in this relationship too. She's waited 5 years to get married. Meanwhile, her best friend is getting married way sooner than her. And you've been with your boyfriend for much less time. Also, if we want to look at this seriously, it doesn't sound like she's very serious about getting married either, or even about this relationship in the slightest. Like, didn't she give some kind of ultimatum to her boyfriend and basically say that if we don't get engaged by Christmas, then she's gonna break up with him? Because last I checked, she's still with him and Christmas definitely passed. So it really sounds like she's got her own problems to figure out. So honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think some time and distance might be the best thing in this scenario, because your friend is clearly jealous of you, and hopefully she can come back around and figure out exactly what she wants. Am I the jerk for giving my son's room to my grandchild? Because right now, my son is freaking out, claiming that we're trying to erase him from the family by giving his room over to my grandchild. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 56-year-old woman, and I have 3 children. We'll call them Brad, Emma, and Sophia. Those are not their real names. Brad, who's 32 years old, lives about 4 hours away. Emma, who's 29, just recently moved back home. And Sophia, who's 23, still lives with my husband and I. Emma was engaged, and the relationship became awful, so we urged her to stay with us for a while for both safety reasons and financial reasons. She's also 32 weeks pregnant with our first child, which will also be our first grandchild. She does work hard, but took a financial hit when her relationship ended, and home prices are insanely high here. We have a nice size 4-bedroom home that we've owned since the kids were little. All 3 of our kids have their own bedrooms, and Brad's room is currently vacant except for the few times a year that he visits. Brad moved out about 3 years ago and did not at all take care of his room. I had to do a lengthy cleanup when he moved out, and the room has been needing to be redone for quite a while. I told Emma that I would happily help her renovate Brad's room for the baby, and the baby will be sleeping in her room the first few months anyways, but the nursery will give her a dedicated space to keep the baby's things and a place for the baby to sleep once the bassinet is outgrown. The only caveat was that the room needs to have a bed for Brad's visits. When he comes home, he can either stay in his old room and the baby can be in a pack and play with Emma, or Emma can stay in the baby's room and Brad can stay in hers. It's not ideal, but it's the best option for Emma at this time, and it's something that we can make work. I was telling Brad about the plans to renovate his room into a nursery, and he just completely freaked out. He said that I should have asked him and not told him. He feels that I'm trying to erase him from the family and that I'd rather have the baby than him. He said he's not going to visit anymore or come home for holidays because he won't feel welcome. He feels his sister was irresponsible to get pregnant and that she is not owed his childhood bedroom for her child. He feels it has sentimental value, and I'm just getting rid of that without second thought. But I disagree with him wholeheartedly. I love all of my kids and my unborn grandchild, and I'm just trying to do right by all of them with the resources that I have. He comes home very few times a year, maybe less than 10 nights per year, and to me, it just doesn't make sense to have a vacant room when we could really use that space for a baby. So am I the jerk for just giving away his childhood bedroom? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Brad does not live there anymore. He literally lives 4 hours away. Does he really expect you to keep his room as it is? is, especially now that he's 32 years old and he moved out. Like, that's insane to me. Plus, it sounds like his sister really is in need of help. Like, unless he's renting that room out for some reason, in my opinion, I think you're well within your right to clean it out and use it for whatever you want. He is overreacting and trying to shift the blame onto Emma. Meanwhile, he's missing the fact that Emma was in an awful relationship. Like, not just verbally, but physically as well. She literally moved back home for safety. Like, how selfish can you possibly get? Like, come on. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Brad is overreacting, and in my opinion, I think you're well within your rights to change that room as you see fit. Am I the jerk for not wearing the wedding dress my stepsister handmade for me, since she made something that I definitely did not agree upon, and the sizing was completely wrong? Because right now, my dad and my stepmom are furious with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 25-year-old female, and I got married 2 weeks ago. My now husband and I paid for most of the wedding, but my father covered a few costs for us. My father's girlfriend, who we will call Stella, has a daughter by the name of Zoe, who is finishing her degree in fashion. She wants to get into the wedding dress industry once she graduates, and when I started planning my wedding, she offered to design and make my dress. Now, I was hesitant at first, as I'd been excited about picking out my own dress, but I agreed because I didn't know Zoe that well, as my father had only been dating her mother for about 2 years, and I thought this could be a nice opportunity to bond. Also, I'd seen some of her work, where she had made a couple of ball gowns in college, and she seemed honestly good. We met up a few times to discuss our ideas. During those times, I realized that our styles were drastically different, but we still managed to agree on a design. I gave Zoe my measurements and asked her to update me. Well, she didn't. Whenever I asked her how she was doing, she would say that she was going to send me progress pictures when she got home, but she never did. It took her longer than expected to finish it, and I didn't even get the dress until a month before my wedding. And let me tell you something, it looked nothing like the design we had agreed upon. It was the wrong color, the wrong style, the wrong everything. It looked exactly like the type of dress Zoe would want to wear, but I knew I'd never wear anything like it. I really did not like that dress. When I tried it on, I found out it was also 3 sizes too big. And though I knew I could probably have it altered, I truly did not want to wear that dress on my wedding day. So I called Zoe and I told her I wouldn't be wearing the dress. I said that it looked lovely, but it is not the style that we agreed upon, and I thought it would be best for me to find a different dress. I offered to pay for her work, even though she was making the dress for free, but she declined and then just hung up on me. So I went to a rental bridal store with my maid of honor, and we found a beautiful gown that didn't need much altering, and it looked exactly like I wanted. Fast forward to my wedding, and I walked down the aisle in the dress that I bought. Zoe seemed to be on the verge of tears during the ceremony, and Stella gave me dirty looks all throughout the reception. When I approached them a while later, they were both really short with me. My father, Stella, and Zoe left less than an hour into the reception. My father and Stella called me the next day and told me off for how I treated Zoe. This had been her first time making a wedding dress, and she had been excited to see me wear it. They said it was insulting to me to not wear the dress that she put so much effort into. I tried to explain why I didn't wear the dress, but they were both insisting the dress was beautiful and I could have just sucked it up. Now, my husband and my other sister are on my side, but I've been feeling guilty about this since I decided not to wear the dress. So honestly, am I in the wrong here? Because seriously, I don't know what to do. I don't think you're the jerk at all, and the fact that your dad and Stella are basically trying to force you to wear this stupid dress, in my opinion, is super toxic. I mean, this is your wedding, right? You and your husband paid for the most of it, with your dad just paying for a few costs that you couldn't cover. So last I checked, if Zoe made a crappy dress, then you're under no obligation to have to wear it. So what if she put a lot of time and effort into it? She clearly did it wrong, and she didn't go with the agreed upon design at all. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would be pretty upset as well. And this literally is all Zoe's fault too, by the way. If she had just given updates to the original poster, then literally all of this could have been avoided. She could have received all the direction she could have needed from the original poster, and this dress could probably come out looking closer to what the original poster wanted. But instead, it really seems like she slapped it together last minute and decided, here you go, this is good enough. Like, that seriously is obnoxious, and honestly, I would not put up with that for a second. So no, you are not the jerk, and you were definitely not obligated to wear that dress at your wedding. And anybody who's trying to guilt trip you in some kind of way, in my opinion, is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my dad's wife with their baby, as well as telling them that I am not their helper? Because right now they are very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 17-year-old male, and my dad and I do not have a good relationship. When my mom was sick with cancer, my dad was out cheating on her, and he left me to take care of my younger siblings. I have a sister who's 12 years old and a brother who's 11. He even let me catch him with 2 different women during that time, and my mom was on hospice care. So it was really difficult not to say anything, but I was so overwhelmed and scared that saying the wrong thing would take her from us sooner. Now, this was 4 years ago, and I never forgave him for what he put me through. I told him before that I never want to be like him when I grow up, and he is no role model to me. I also called him a failure as a husband and a father. Well, he was angry at being called a failure as a father, but when his 3 kids needed him the most, he wasn't there. Instead, he was messing around with women on the side. He also said he loved my mom and never wanted me to say he was all bad as her husband. I said I found it so hard to believe, and he would never convince me he actually loved her. Now, I was still mostly in charge after my mom passed away, but eventually my siblings started to pick up some skills, so I wasn't basically doing it all. It really helped, and it made us regular siblings again, instead of me almost being a dad to the family. But it was also tough because they're really young, and I hated that they were forced to grow up so fast. Losing our mother did that anyways. Fast forward, and my dad met someone a couple of years ago, and he introduced her to us last year, and it took only a few weeks for her to move in. Then suddenly she's pregnant, and they raced to get married. My dad's wife tried to involve my siblings and me in her pregnancy excitement, but I wasn't excited, and I don't think they were either. I'm pretty sure we all avoided her as much as we could. The baby was born in December, and she has been reaching out to me to help pretty often. But the thing is, I don't help her. I check in on my siblings where I can, but other than that, I focus on myself. I know biologically that baby is my half-sibling, but I just don't care. I don't see them as a sibling, and I'm not planning to bond with them or keep them in my life once I'm in college. I won't even speak to my dad either, just my siblings. Recently, Dad's wife has been pressing more for my help, and the other day, she asked me why I could be such a great big brother to my younger siblings, but I have never even held her baby. She told me she sees me do so much for my siblings, and knows that I was the person who helped them through when my mom was sick and when she passed away. She told me she figured I would want to be the same for her baby, but I told her it wasn't my job to help and to get her husband if she needed help. She told me she wanted her baby to be accepted, and none of us had accepted the baby yet, and none of us had even interacted with the baby yet. She said it's not fair and she needs help, but I told her I am not a helper, and she needs to hire someone if she really wants help, or to repeat myself again, she can get my dad, but I won't be doing anything for her or her baby. Well, as a result, she called me disgusting. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? Honestly, I think with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk. If she knows about your mom passing away, as well as you stepping up to take care of your siblings, then she has got to know how much of a deadbeat your dad actually is. He abandoned you and your siblings and did nothing to help the family. He cheated on your mom and made your life a lot more miserable than it needed to be. Not to mention the fact that your mom passed away in the process of all of this. Like, I can't imagine that happening to me, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. He betrayed your trust and your siblings' trust, and I don't blame you for being upset and choosing to keep your distance from his new family that he's clearly trying to create. Because what he did to you and your siblings is unacceptable, and in my opinion, you have every right to be upset. An entitled Karen goes on a long, insulting rant, making fun of my art project and my house in the process, and I'm honestly still blown away by this Karen's entitlement. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm an artist, and one of my most popular items are customized haunted home drawings of people's houses. They send me a photo and I draw it as a spooky house. It's a pretty cut and dry process. I vend at local markets and oddity events, and my stuff is kind of gothy and very niche. I'm no stranger to the entitled Karen's side-eye when they clearly don't care for my work, but this Karen was just so mad about something so stupid. The sample haunted home I have on display, next to an actual photo of the house, is my own home. I'm a mid-30s millennial in a high cost of living area, and I'm just happy to have been able to buy a home at all. It was a lot of timing and luck, and it's no mansion or anything like that, but from the outside my home does look very small. When I was explaining the process to this entitled Karen, she looked at the sample, which is my house by the way, and with this disgusted look on her face, she said to me, "But this house is so small. Why would anyone want a drawing of something like this? It's barely a house at all. Maybe a shed, really." She even called her friend over to point it out and laugh a bit, and continued to talk about how embarrassing it was, and who could possibly live in a shack like that, continuing to say there's no room for anything, and the scariest thing about it is how small it is. is. Now, she went on for a fairly long time, and I was kind of struck silent. Eventually, when I snapped back to reality, I just smiled and said, well, we make it work. I'm just grateful to even have a home in a market like this. And I said that in the most sugary, sweet way possible. But really, I was just trying not to cry. Now, to give her the most minimal credit, this entitled Karen turned red, did a 180, and walked away. So, in the end, she at least had the tiniest bit of shame. Wow, some people just can't keep their mouths shut. Like, seriously, she went on this long tirade and this long rant about this house, not thinking for a second that the way she's acting is probably like super rude. Like, she very easily could have been like, oh, that's cool, and then moved on. But instead, this entitled Karen just had to make her stupid opinion known. And to that regard, I am so happy that the original poster basically called her out, because the way this Karen acted honestly was just not okay, as there was no reason to go on such a long tirade over something so simple. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.